Okay guys, we're going to do something a little different today. I thought, why not? We live once. So this is what I'm calling indie love. I'm going with the whole Valentine's theme. Work with me here. So I obviously, as in almost exclusively when you count numbers indie published, I had 10, 11, I think, traditionally published books. Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and I will be getting my rights back on the other 3, and then I will still just have the 1. And indie is for me. It's the best choice for me and my books. And I realized there are some indie authors that I talk a lot about. There are some indie authors who I don't talk enough about, and there are some I haven't tried yet. And I was like, let's talk indie, because indie. So I'm all about the best choice for authors, for them and their books. And indie isn't the best choice for everyone, and traditional isn't the best choice for everyone. And sometimes indie isn't the best for every book, or traditional isn't the best for every book. That's how I got started. My first few books in particular, there's no way a traditional house would have touched them. They were way too niche, if you will. You know, a large family, big cast of characters for a brand new author. Nobody's going to touch that. You know, a woman who has a physics degree, but just wants to be a homemaker, an unmarried homemaker, and finds a way to make it work. That's not what the average woman is looking for. And so I was like, you know, that's why I tried indie to see if I'd even like it. And it kind of, you know, morphed into, wait a minute, this is how it is. And with my first traditional one with Waterfall, Deepest Roots of the Heart, I learned a lot from that process. Those people were amazing. It was an absolutely great experience. And it really taught me that, yeah, indies for me. I am too much of a control freak to really go traditional. Now, I did do traditional with some author projects because it seemed like the very best way to market and you know, work with those books. Because I am so deeply rooted in indie, I have a heart for indie authors, and I want to support indie authors. And there are some, it was really hard. There were some here that were like hybrid that I wanted to bring in. And I was like, no, you can't do this. Keep it to as far as you know. And this is my big caveat. This is as far as I know, these people are indie authors. Either I looked it up and it said indie author, or like with one that I want to read, you know, it says he's an indie. I'm like, oh, I'm trusting it. But the people like Dan Walsh, who started out traditional and now is indie, I didn't include him, not because I don't think he's a great author and I think more people need to read him. I do. But I was really trying to keep it to what I know to be indie. So I also tried not to do the same that I see a lot of other people talking about. So like, I'm part of an author group. We do retreats together and we talk. So Elena Johnson / Liz Isaacson / Jessie Newton. She's part of that group. Everybody knows who they are. And so I kind of left her out, like Mandy Blake. Everybody knows Mandy Blake. Everybody knows Tara Grace Erikson. And I don't know how, because I know her as Elsie Turner. She does Cozy Mysteries. I don't know how Lena Turner, how well her romance stuff is known. So I didn't bring them in. I feel like I'm missing someone. Carrie Trumbo. Carrie, I'm sorry. Carrie Trumbo's in there, but I brought, you know, I talked about Terry Blake and that women's fiction quartet. Yeah, I love that women's fiction set, and I've talked about her. I mean, she's the one that I want, one of the Hallmarky kind of channels to do her Sweet Rivals from the Independence Islands, because that book might be my favorite in the series as far as just fun and different and quirky. It was awesome, and I think it would make a great, you know, kind of sweet romance movie. But whatever. So I didn't bring them into it. Because A, I've either talked about them a lot, or a lot of people know those names. I didn't bring all the authors in from the Christmas Lights collections that we have. You know, Vicki Kestel was in the very first one we ever had, and Vicki writes historical. We went contemporary with the collection. So she, well, you know, she was just part of that first one. She also wrote the Nano Sleuth series, which is contemporary, and I've heard nothing but good about it, but I have not read it. So I'll throw her name out there for that. It's supposed to be like really riveting and amazing, and I need to read it. I wish I had thought to put it on the want to reads. If I remember, I'll stick it back in there. But, and then we've had Toni Shiloh was part of it for years until she went traditional. So there's Toni, and then Teresa Teisinger has been a part of it for the last few years. Carrie Trumbull was 1 year. You know, Teresa Teisinger and J.C. Weaver. That. Anyway, so, you know, like the Christmas Lights collection authors, kind of a shout out to Kathy in a minute, but not the same. All right, and then there's the Mosaic collection, and because there's so many and I'm so afraid I'm going to skip someone, I probably still will. I'm just going to go down this list and just point out names. So Johnny Alexander. Johnny is a hybrid. Okay, I'm just going to say, because I know she's done some through Barbara, but Johnny also... That journal, it's like kind of a little bit like Things We Didn't Say by Amy Lynn Green, where it's told, it's an epistolary short thing, but it's told not even just through journal entries and letters and whatever, but even like receipts. So I thought that was cool. Brenda S. Anderson, I think she's the one who wrote A Beautiful Mess. I want to read that. Eleanor Burton. Eleanor has I think it's like Lifelines and whatever that I have that I still haven't read, need to. Sarah Davison writes suspense, great stuff. And I think is she hybrid? She may be hybrid, but I don't think so. Deb Elkink, and I don't know what Deb has written. I haven't read hers yet, but she's a hoot. Mila Holt writes contemporary romance. Angela D. Meyer, I don't remember what Angela writes. Stacy Monson writes women's fiction. Lorna Sealstead, and then Candace West writes historical. But anyway, you know, aside from those, there are a few indies that I have mentioned many times. So I just wanted to throw them out one more time, just to be fair. Obviously, Laura Heil, if you like Regency, Laura Heil has a lot of her Regency novels on YouTube here. You can listen to them free audio. So I'm just putting that out there. I'll try to remember to link her channel. And then Barbara Cornthwaite. I've mentioned Barbara a lot, and I will keep mentioning her. Laura Heil said once that if Barbara wrote and sold a grocery list, she would read it. And yeah, I would too. She has that brilliant humor that doesn't really advertise itself as humor. It's just in the writing because it's just who she is. Like even her author bio, she talks about how, she grew up in Southern California and then was whisked away to Ireland with her Irish husband, and there she lives in the countryside where everything is green and beautiful. And then, but her kids love the big city and the noise and all the stuff. It's just really like, yeah, I get it. So, but she wrote a bunch of Jane Austen retellings, spin-offs, etc. George Knightley Esquire. So Emma is her favorite book. So she wrote the story of Emma from Knightley's perspective. And it's how I actually learned to see Emma in a much different light, because I saw her as a spoiled, meddlesome, self-important twit until I read it through Knightley's eyes. And then I was able to read it and go, oh, well, okay, actually I see that. I didn't before. So kudos to her for that. And then, but she also wrote like a Victorian one that deals with, what were they called? Oh, it's driving me nuts. The book is A Fine Young Lady, and it deals with a young woman who is a lover books. So she says it's a very loose kind of picture of her and her husband. When they were first getting to know each other, because, she just loves all things books and thinks life is going to be like a novel. And he's just this very practical, I mean, it is so her and it is so him. I don't know him as well as I know her, but I can totally see her in the character of Verity. Absolutely. But him, from what I saw of Josiah in the book and what I know of Tim, yeah, I see it. I really do see it. But again, I don't know him as well. However, I will say that, we've chatted, we totally disagree on eschatology, and he's perfectly okay with letting me be wrong. So, I'm just saying, when you can chat eschatology and someone, you walk away still disagreeing and yet still cordial, sometimes that says a lot about the other person when they're like, okay, fine, if you want to be wrong, that's good. Because that seems to be like the one thing in Christian circles that if you don't agree, it's like anathema. I don't understand it, but and I do think that is changing, but for a long time that was a big thing. So I'm just saying, he's a pretty neat guy. But in that one, they had those homes where women, like usually widows or older women, would take in the children of women who had to work, usually single mothers, or, widows who just couldn't take care of their infants during the day while they had to work. And so they would farm them out to these, they were like children farms, and these women would sometimes take good care of them and often not. And a lot of children died, either because they died or they were, sold off. I mean, it was terrible. And so that is addressed in the book. The Irish problem is addressed. A lot of cool things in that book. She doesn't really like the book much. I really loved it, but there's no accounting for taste, right? And then she wrote the Wilkester Mysteries, which are contemporary mysteries set in like Washington with an adjunct professor at a small college, and all the things that go in with that. And they're brilliant. I want more. She's actually a fine example of someone who might be better as a traditionally published person, because she really needs a deadline and she's a very slow writer. And so that combination, traditional might be better for her, but I'm really glad that we don't have to wait around for some publisher to discover how great she is, or we might not have any of her books. So thank you, Barbara, for not going traditional. Okay, so I got some of those. There's many more, but those are the ones I know I mention a lot, and I just wanted to give them one last little thing. Let's get into the actual names that I wanted to talk about and why. So I tried to order these in a certain way, and then I don't think I did very well. So we're just going to go down my list and hope that, we do well. I didn't go out to the room to pull in books. I just couldn't. I really need to get that thing out of there and in here so that this is not a problem anymore. But alas and alack, it is what it is. Okay. First off is Heather Day Gilbert. I don't hear people talking about Heather Day Gilbert. I do not understand why, because she is a brilliant suspense / mystery writer. Miranda Warning is the first one. I need to read it again for Goodreads, and then I could give more about it, because I read it so long ago, like 2016, 2015. I don't know much except that it's in West Virginia, and there's 3 books in the series, and it was pretty intense, if I recall. Really, really good story. But so there's Miranda Warning, and there's 2 others, and it does take place in West Virginia. But she also has her cozy mystery series, The Barks and Beans, where it's a cozy that involves a dog. And then there's also the Exotic Pet. Is it the Exotic Pet series or the Exotic Pet Shop? Don't remember which. But she also has those. They're kind of Christy Barrett-like in just how fun. But I feel like I haven't read Barks and Beans. I really need to read Barks and Beans. I have a feeling that I wish they were all on audio, because I would have binged them already. I just really feel like I'm really going to love the Barks and Beans. So Heather Day Gilbert, I think we need to be talking more about her, and people need to be trying her out more. Just putting that out there. Then there's Perry Kirkpatrick. Now, Perry doesn't write much, but she has an entire series, The Accidental Case Files of Emily Abbott. And it's basically Get Smart meets the Scarecrow and Mrs. King in Phoenix contemporary. I mean, there is a very light, very minor hint of a romantic thread through them. But these are books that I would absolutely give, a kid under 10 and be absolutely fine with. They're lots of fun. You would need someone with a pretty solid reading level under 10, but they're the content wise, and the paperbacks, guys, I've loaned mine out. I think I need to repurchase them because I don't know that I'm gonna get them back. But they're like 4x6, pictures. They're tiny. They're very, very, very short. If you need a book for a challenge and you need something fast, but you don't want to just be reading to be reading, this is a good place to start if these titles, but I have to admit, I would read them in order. But there is this, is it the 1,000? Is that the name of the organization that they're working against? I can't remember. It's been since like 2019 since I read them. But when I repurchase them, I will reread them all because I can read all of them in the space it would take to read one or two full length, chunky novels. So just saying, but they're just fun. They're a hoot. So Emily Abbott works in a coffee shop, and somebody comes in, she gets this new employee, and something happens, and off they go together, and she's like, "You're a spy? Where's the gadgets?" She wants all the gadgets. She wants the shoe phone. She wants all the things, right? And he's like, "Yeah, that's not real." But then this not real stuff does tend to kind of happen anyway. And she's like, "Not real, huh?" And it's just a lot of fun. They're just fun. That's all there is to say about them. They're not deep. But everything doesn't have to be deep. Okay. And they're just, if you need just kind of a light, just enjoyable, Perry Kirkpatrick with, Accidental Case Files of Emily Abbott. She also has the Kitten Files, but I'm missing number 1, so I haven't read it yet. I just need to order another one. But I haven't read those, but I have a feeling they're going to be fun. But then she also writes as Denver Evans for the Phantoms. I didn't even find it and I remembered. And it's a trilogy. It's fantasy, but she took things like mermaids and pirates and can't remember what the other one was, and kind of did a twist on them, just to kind of give them a different, what could this be instead of something else. So they're totally fantasy. Things can't happen the way they do in the books, but that's okay. But you got this kind of geeky inventor guy who has to kind of come out of his shell. He's a kid, but he has to kind of come out of his shell and work with people to save stuff from stuff. And that's about the best I can say. But yeah, so for this series, because it's totally different from everything else she's written, it is under Denver Evans, and totally loved them, had a blast with them. And again, they're trying to think what I would probably give those to a kid of any age as well, as long as they understood that, maybe just a little bit more, maybe closer to 12, only because of if you had a kid who was a little delayed on understanding abstract fantasy stuff, then, maybe a little later, but not because of content. So Perry Kirkpatrick, I don't hear anybody talking about her, and especially the Accidental Case Files of Emily Abbott. Why? Why are we not talking about Perry? Because she's great. And then for Christian women's fiction, and now she's gone into biblical fiction, but at first it was Christian women's fiction. Dylan, Grace in Strange Disguise was the first book, and they all have Grace in the title. After that, I think there's 5. There could be 6, but I think there's 5. And they're just rich story, faith infused. Just, if you pull the faith from the story, there is no story. And so, I mean, it is as deeply Christian fiction as you can get. I'm trying to remember romance content. All I remember is that it's really low, but I don't know that they all have it. I think it's only where the story requires some, but they are not, I wouldn't even call them Christian romantic women's fiction if I and it's been so long, but if I recall correctly, I wouldn't even call it Christian romantic women's fiction. They're just Christian women's fiction. But she's also moved into biblical fiction. I have not read any of it, but knowing Christine the way I do, if she wrote biblical fiction, she did her research. So I'm confident that at least there's not going to be a lot of conjecture as to facts. It will just be putting facts into a story world so we can see how those facts actually work, that kind of thing. But I know nothing about it. I'm going based on what I know about her. So Christine Dillon, about the Grace series, if you're looking for more contemporary, I go with her. Yes, I've talked about this gal a lot, but nobody's talking about her. And so I'm still going to keep talking until I'm like, Amanda G. Stevens. Seriously, why aren't more people talking about Amanda? Because of everyone that I'm mentioning today, if you could only read one of those authors, I would go with Amanda. And my friend Teresa here in town would absolutely agree with me. I think she would agree with me that I would... This is so silly, but I'm going to say it because it's true. It's going to sound really ridiculous, but here's the deal. I would rather someone try out one of her series than to try out one of mine, because I'm that passionate about people discovering how great of a writer and a storyteller she is. She doesn't just write beautiful prose, interesting prose, engaging prose. She also just has this really engaging story. So she has 2 series that I've been reading. I've read all of the No Less Day series. I've been told, it says in it that there's going to be a 4th one, and I'm pretty sure she said on Instagram once that there will be a 4th one. I'm waiting for that 4th book. I want that book so bad. But don't have it yet. The series can end right where it is. She has written them so that they can end where it is. And that's good in case for some reason she doesn't come back to it. But I want that next book. They're so good. So in the No Less Days series, way back in the mid 1800s somewhere, a doctor in this one area discovered it's basically pond scum. There was something different about it, and he was examining it and doing stuff with it, and he created this. He saw that it had healing properties, is why he did this. But he created this thing. I feel like it was an injection, but it could have been a salve. But I feel like it was an injection that he then tried on someone last second, just in desperation, because he knew that it worked topically. Maybe if we inject it. And this guy with broken bones and falling apart. I mean, this guy is dying. And this is just a last ditch effort to keep him alive until they can try to fix him, right? Well, when he injects it, the bones start regrowing, start reconnecting. The bleeding stops. Everything heals. Now, it's a horrific process. But this person lives. And then he can't die. And that's what the whole series is about. These people that were, they didn't understand at first that they couldn't die, but it's just what is going on. So a few people have been healed this way, and they haven't died. And the thing is that the one guy doesn't know there's anyone else until he finds someone else. And so it's just this whole series about it. It's really, really good. The faith in it is just deep and rich and amazing. And I love it. And I think more people need to read it. The Haven Seekers, her other series, is very different. It is more, I'm going to say, a Christian, a Christian dystopian, in the sense that we have entered a post-apocalyptic era in which Christianity is, in America, it's been rewritten. Like the Bible, they have taken it and they have made it politically correct. And if you use any other Bible but this one, you're subject to jail or worse. It's bad. And so they're people with secret Bibles who are living secret but genuine Christian lives and trying to, bring others to Christ still, and all in this world that, this is illegal. There is a police task force that is their job, to find these Bibles and get rid of them, to find these Christians and get them in prison or worse. And, all that goes with it. It is so, so good. Oh my gravy. But nobody's talking about Amanda G. Stevens. Why? Why are we not talking about her? We need more Amanda. So I'm just going to say, if you just want one new author from today, and there's only one, you can only read one, I'm like, read Amanda. Just like, if you like more fantasy-esque, it's very contemporary, but it has this spec-ficky thing where, there is no elixir that'll keep you alive forever, right? If you want something that happened that wasn't possible, and then the fallout that is just in a contemporary world, there's that one. If you want what looks like it's coming, then you definitely want The Haven Seekers. I'm just putting those out there. But Amanda G. Stevens, yeah, we need more people reading her. Okay, next up is Janice L. Dick, and she wrote the Happenstance book. There's like The Road to Happenstance and Crazy About Maisie and Grace. Is it Gracie and something or Grace and something? Can't remember if it's a name or... Anyway, I loved this series so much. So, and I don't hear people talking about it. I'm just going to say. But part of me feels like she might be a hybrid author. But I only know her as Indie, so I'm sticking with her. But Happenstance, it starts off with this guy. He's had he's a professor, and he's had a difficult season. He gets on his motorcycle and he rides off into the sunset, right? And he comes over this covered bridge into Happenstance, and he kind of can't leave. He ends up in this inn. It's run by these two older women. They're a little odd, but very sweet. And there are other people living in the house, and it's all about just community and healing. And the funny thing is he can't seem to leave Happenstance. So there's just this tiny drop of magical realism in there, because it's not that the story says he absolutely can't, but he feels like he's like being held there. And why, what's going on. And so it's just, the series is so good. I'm gonna call it feels more Mitfordy than your just typical like romance. It's not really, there are romantic threads in the books, but it's more about community and relationships and coming to terms with the Lord, and so I loved it. And I think people who like that kind of community-based story would really enjoy it. And I don't hear anyone talking about Happenstance, and it's so good. I was like, oh, we need more Happenstance. So putting that one out there because it's one of my personal favorites, and nobody's talking about it. Another one I've talked about here, and I probably should have put this up at the beginning because I've talked about it a lot, but Natasha Metzler.
My apologies to Natasha Metzler. I finally learned to say my niece's name correctly for her. It's Natasha for her. And what did I do? Yeah, I butchered Natasha's name because of it. Sorry.
With her Emma and the Reasons and Love Paris, the Women Promise series, I think. These are definitely women's fiction. Light romantic women's fiction. It's the romance side definitely has a purpose to the story outside of the romance itself, which I think is really cool. But in Emma and the Reasons, Emma has two friends she lives with. They're married friends. The marrieds call them the Reasons because they all have reasons why they aren't married and why they are perfectly content being single, until the marrieds start playing matchmaker, and everything kind of falls apart in a good and bad way. And the book completely ends. It was the most satisfying ending of a book almost ever. It was just, I loved what she did. I loved that she gave the readers what the readers wanted, and she gave the characters what the characters wanted, and not and needed, and not necessarily in the way that maybe people might think they would. And I still haven't read Love Paris, but I totally intend to. That one, just like, she hasn't been home in like 12 years or something like that, and now she has to go home, and what's going on. Still want to read that. I thought about doing that this month, and maybe I should have, but I didn't. So there's that. But yeah. And last of the ones I've read, and I don't hear enough people talking about, that would be K.M. Weiland. She wrote Wayfarer, Storming, and Dreamlander. I know those at least. I feel like there's another one that I'm forgetting. I've read Storming. It is a diesel punk. It's a diesel punk kind of thing. This guy is a pilot with like the old Jenny type planes, and you know, they do all the stunts for the shows and whatever. But as he's practicing one night, a woman in a ball gown falls out of the sky. I mean, that's really what happens. And then the story goes from there. So it's definitely fantasy. You know, it's got all the fun, you know, steampunky, diesel punky kind of things in it. But it's also got a really good story. I expected to love it. Don't get me wrong. I knew I was going to love this book. I had no idea that I was going to love it this much. Can I just say? It was phenomenal. I'm just putting it out there. It was phenomenal. So we need to be talking more about K.M. Weiland. Her books have a Christian worldview. She is a Christian. They have a Christian worldview. They're not overtly Christian in that we're not going to be talking about scriptures back and forth and, you know, in that sense, but they're definitely have the themes, and they're clean. So just putting that out there. Now, I have a couple of want to read authors that I thought I would share that I personally have not read these authors yet, but they're ones that I keep wanting to read. And one of them is Marlene Williams. She wrote All Men Are Liars, and it is definitely a not Jesus culture. I keep mixing those up, but it's a Jesus people, you know, the revolution, Jesus revolution era thing, late 60s to early 70s. This series is going, and it's just all about, you know, she talked about, you know, she was part of it when she was a kid, and she's like, you know, these kids, they found the scriptures, they study the scriptures, they, you know, gave their lives over to Christ, and then they're in this place where they go into these Orthodox churches and they don't fit. And so, and you know, it's kind of like, this is kind of where the whole Calvary Chapel came from, you know, from this Jesus revolution. And so it kind of fits. And so, but you know, she's got her book, and there's going to be at least, I think she said 3 in this series. So I don't, do I have mine? Have I bought it yet? I feel like I bought it. Have I showed it? If I haven't shown it, then I haven't got it yet. And I don't remember showing it. So what do you think, guys? Have you seen this? So Marlene Williams, I really want to read. Definitely want to read her. I love that title. I mean, I just, and before you get riled about the title, just remember that all of her titles so far anyway are being pulled from scripture. Okay. I'm just gonna leave that there. For her especially, there is an interview on Because Fiction if you want to learn more about her, definitely. But yeah, that's one of the ones I'm looking forward to. Another author that I just want to throw in really quick with the I've read part of it. S.F. Baumgartner, she writes suspense and or thrillers. The romantic thread, if it's in there, is not the primary purpose of the story. It's just natural to the story, but they are not romantic suspense in that you will get, even up to 50%. I don't know if you'll get 30%. Some of them have none. So if you like thrillers and that kind of thing, the one I read the prequel to the series, really enjoyed it. And it's not like it was the best one ever, but I could tell what she was doing with it. And there were things about it that I was like, oh, did not see that. So it was both. And I really kind of get the feeling that the future ones in the series are going to be even more twisty, which is kind of good. So when you're dealing with a prequel on suspense, it's really hard to really see where the series is going to go. You just got kind of a taste for the writing, and the writing was good. So just putting that out there. All right. Creston Mapes. Now, I didn't know if this guy was traditionally published or indie published, but I looked it up because I keep seeing his name. I Googled him and it says indie author. So I'm just, he could be a hybrid. He could be like Dan Walsh and he started off traditionally published and now he's gone indie. Or he may have always been indie. I don't know, but I've seen the name and I was like, I keep seeing it everywhere. And when I looked him up to see if he was one of the indies, it says he's an indie author. So I'm just going with that. And if he has traditional, well, then we'll call him hybrid and I'll apologize. But you gotta do what you gotta do. He writes thrillers, and Christian, their faith. You look at the books on Amazon, and faith is stamped on it. Here's the deal. See, a lot of times people assume that on Amazon, only the ones that say independently published are the ones that are independently published, and that's not necessarily true. Like if you look at most of my Kindles, they'll say Havilah Press Publications, and that's because that's my imprint. I had not even thought about this when I did my first books, and because I have so many, I haven't done it yet. Someday, maybe when my husband retires, this will be his job. I will be pulling all the books and putting them under my all the paperbacks. My paperbacks will say independently published for now, but once he does this, they will all have that Havilah Press as well, because I will pull them and I will put new ISBNs with that imprint, and it'll be done. Different authors have different imprints. They are an independent publishing company. They just publish their books, and so just because it doesn't say independently published, it isn't. Well, this guy has like Rooftop something, and I looked up Rooftop, Creston Mapes. I looked up Rooftop Press, I think it was, and they do art prints and whatever in Germany or something, or no, Helsinki. And so I mean, it's just like, okay, that's clearly not him. I could not find anything that was him, and his website is like a Weebly site. So I'm thinking that when it says he's indie, it's true. If he's got a traditional or 2 or 3, well, so do I, but I'm an indie author, so we're just going to go with that. But I'm looking forward to it because his books sound amazing. So I also want to try Luana Ehrlich. It's like something about One Night in Tehran is, I think, the first one. I think she's indie, but I don't know. And so she's another option that I always think of her and Creston Mapes together. Need to do that. Also, is it R. Marshall Wright? He did Grace Like a River Flows. I've heard good things. I actually haven't heard anything but good about his books, but I have not read them yet. I feel like they're going to be right up my alley. I'm just throwing the name out there. I know nothing about it, but he is one who is definitely on my list. And then I just talked, and now here's, guys, I could be totally messing this up, but I'm so eager to read this and to talk about this book that I have to just put this out there. It just came in. Just talked to her on Thursday. Just talked to Tabitha Kaplinger. She has several books. The Wayfarer, the Waymaker, Wayfarer. I think it's the Wayfarer is one that I'm like, I bought it right away to read. I was just like, we were talking and I bought it because it sounded so amazing. She writes very diverse genres, just whatever the story goes. Not that I've ever done that or anything, right? And so when she was telling me about, all the books that she has out there, when it got to that one, I was like, I need that book. So I bought it. But then we talked about the book that she came on to talk about, which was The Castle Rose. And I was like, I need this book now. I want to. So this book is like a mashup of Beauty and the Beast and Phantom of the Opera, set in New Orleans, with some magical realism, fantasy-esque stuff. Okay, and I was like, I need this book. The more she's talking, beignets, because beignets, so she's talking about it, and I'm like, I need that book. So I ordered it right away. I wanted it in paperback. I knew without a doubt I had to have this book in paperback. A bookish book. It's got a bookstore, because a bookstore. So I was like, I need this book. So I don't know. She could be. There were. I talked to several people last week. I think it was 4 different people. And one of them was with a small press in like North Carolina, and you have to be Southern and everything. And I don't remember if it was her or one of the other days. This, guys, I got to read you this synopsis. And then I'm going to try to hurry up and get out of here because I've been taking forever. But this book, this is why this is on here. And I'm really hoping that she is indie and that I'm not remembering wrong. Okay. Bastien Roux lived and died 100 years ago. Kind of. He certainly feels like nothing more than a ghost as he haunts the abandoned Castle Rose Theater, his only solace found in the notes of his piano. That is, until Odette arrives. Odette Durand moved to New Orleans for a fresh start. The coffee-addicted local bookshop manager never expected to be pulled into something supernatural, and she certainly doesn't believe in ghosts. But seeing a man no one else can see and hearing music that shouldn't exist makes a girl question her beliefs and her sanity. With a mysterious and somewhat charming Southern gentleman thrown into the mix, Odette finds herself entangled in a century-old rivalry bound by a curse. If she's the only one who can see Bastien, is she the only one who can break whatever is keeping him stuck in the realm between the living and the dead? As Odette and Bastien navigate the shadows of Bastien's past, they must grapple with the ultimate question: will breaking the curse give Bastien his life back or take it away forever? And of course, again, fairy tale and all the things that go with it. So anyway, I was like, yes, Beauty and the Beast plus Phantom of the Opera. I mean, as soon as I saw theater, I was like, gosh, this feels a little Phantom of the Opera-ish. And then I see bookstore and I'm like... And so then when she said that, I was like, yes. So again, I apologize if I'm wrong about this being an indie author, but because I talked to a lot of indie authors last week and she could have been one of them, I stuck it in there. If not, it's an indie press and we'll go with that, right? But yeah, so those are just a few. There are tons and tons more that I could talk about, but I've been talking way too long. I'm probably going to have to cut out some of this stuff anyway. So I'm just going to say, show some indie love soon. And if you are looking for, come on, I gave you cozy mystery, suspense, thriller, fantasy, goofy spy, romance, regular fantasy, diesel punk. I gave you a huge... The only thing I don't have in there is sci-fi. I have a sci-fi-ish. It's futuristic, technology that we don't have today. So, I'm just saying. Yeah, but it's really not about me. It's about these guys. Okay? So, yeah, I thought it would be fun to talk indies, and there are way more. Can I just say there are way more indies to talk about? Just putting that out there. But I thought this would be a fun thing to do, show a little book love around Valentine's Day, and I'll be back on Friday with something. I'm kind of thinking I might go really early and figure out what I want to do for middle grade March. I just saw the announcement for middle grade March, and their prompts are so brilliant because if you read the two reads, the two books that they have for this year, technically that counts for all of the prompts. I was just listening to all of them, and every single prompt there was fits with one of those two books. So I have to order the one book because I don't have it, and I'm like, I might just read those two. At least that way it kind of makes it, for me. But I think March for Chantal Reads All Day is Time. And this is, see, another reason why this is really good. See, my brain is going a million miles an hour, but Time, I have to figure out how that's going to work with Secret Garden and this other one. The other one, it's like the Moon something, which is a Secret Garden sci-fi retelling, right? Well, that definitely works with, they both work with time. One was written back in time. One is written about future in time. Boom! We got Time. Okay. So anyway, I might do that. I might. I think that might be fun. But yeah, so hopefully you found a couple of authors. If there are indie authors there are lots of indie authors I haven't read. But if there are indie authors that you absolutely love that you think aren't talked about enough, please put them in the comments so that if I haven't read them, I can, or if I have read them, I can echo you, or maybe we can do a part 2 of this and it's like, here's more indie authors that not enough people are talking about so that we can get people talking. Because yes, right? And yeah, have a great week.